Never in my life did I think that another truck would get between my heart and my Toyota Land Cruiser 70 Series, and then this home-wrecking hussy of a German SUV shows up. I bought this Mercedes G320 1999 from Japanese auction last year. Today I'm doing somewhat of a review of the Mercedes G Wagon, but mainly we're going to talk about what years are the best for this car because it can be pretty tricky. So thanks for tuning in to Jim Ports. Let's talk G Wagons. The infamous G-Wagon. Everyone's in love with the idea of having a G-Wagon. But even though they all kind of look the same, you're dealing with a lot of different choices. It can be overwhelming with new Gs selling for over 150 Gs. Is it possible to get a good G-Wagon without a job in finance and or an OF account? You can get a great G model, arguably the best one ever made, $35,000 to $60,000. Shocking but true. Also, if you can go check out my OF account after this video, that'd be great. OnlyFans, not allowed to say it on YouTube. The G-Wagon, and as a point of order, Americans, it's G-Wagon with an E, not with an O. The German name, Geländewagen. Just like the German Porsche versus the American Porsche, I will pronounce it in this video as the proper German G-Wagon, not the American G-Wagon. Getting into the G-Wagon can be intimidating, and I mean that metaphorically, buying it. But if you're my 5'4" wife who wishes I still had the factory side steps on this one, then it's literal. Not only do you have distinct families, but even within the families, there is a dizzying array of transmission and or engine combinations. Without even getting into engine types, you've got 4-cylinder, 5-cylinder, 6-cylinder, 8-cylinder, 12-cylinder engines available for the G-Wagon in both diesel and in petrol. Not to mention you got 3-speed, 4-speed, 5-speed, 6-speed, 7-speed, 9-speed transmissions. You're looking at 50 plus possible combinations of transmission and engine before you even get into the generations of the G, the markets, the options. So if you feel overwhelmed shopping these, totally normal. It's worse than a Cheesecake Factory menu, but at least you're less likely to get a pile of crap in front of you if you pick the wrong Mercedes. This truck is the longest produced passenger vehicle made by Mercedes. It was originally introduced in 1979, it drove the Pope in 1980, and it sold over 500,000 models as of 2023. Appearance-wise, hasn't changed much since. Similar to the Jeep Wrangler, the Land Cruiser 70 Series, it has this timeless, boxy look. That's a big part of the appeal and a big part of why these don't look dated, even when they're old like mine. The first couple of generations of the G-Wagon were strictly utilitarian. They make great off-road vehicles, they certainly look cool, but they're not that well suited for daily driving, especially if you want a comfortable ride and fancy rich man options like air conditioning. On the other side of the scale, the most recent cars from about the past 10 years, strictly luxury vehicles that are overcomplicated, overpriced bullshit for NBA players' wives. So what is the sweet spot? The G-spot, if you will. And what's it like to own one? Sit tight, I will tell you. But let's go over the brief history of the G-Wagon first, because this is where people get lost and you need to understand this. Pretty decent origin story. 1973, the Shah of Iran, one of the largest shareholders in Mercedes at the time, suggested that they make a dual military civilian vehicle. Mercedes partnered with Steyr Puch in Austria, given their experience manufacturing military equipment. Sexy fact. I've been to Steyr's factory in Austria, although that was the old factory for small arms in Steyr, not the new G-Wagon factory in Graz. Now, the family tree, because you're going to hear these chassis codes and you need to know what they mean. The first generation is referred to as the W460, strictly a military work truck. 1989, the line splits between government and civilian. The W463, which is what we're going to talk about mostly today, that was introduced alongside the 461. This ended 460 production in 1991. 461, simple like the 460 chassis with some updates for work use. The 463, numerous updates to make it more usable for everyday driving. And that's what was sold to the average consumer. The 464 is the new military model of the truck introduced in 2022, and the newest generation is the 465. civilian model introduced in 2024. If you want something for off-roading, if you live in a country where you have access to older 460s and 461s, you don't need AC, great options. I'm not going to touch on diesel engines in this video. However, the OM617 5-cylinder diesel is referred to as one of the most reliable diesel engines of all time. And you should read the story of Otto, the blue diesel G-Wagon that completed the longest road trip in history. But if you're looking for a car that's a great off-road performer and a great driver, first generation W463 from 1990 to 2018 is the ticket. Still had triple locking differentials, all the toughness of the old off-road vehicle wrapped in leather and wood grain instead. While there were extensive updates made to the body and chassis in the W463, at its heart, still the same vehicle as the original 460. Many changes, but none of them too drastic. Smoother body lines, the whole car being the same color, a flap on the gas cap, bumpers with integrated fog lamps, so on. ABS, full-time four-wheel drive were included as features. The interior got the more significant update, wood grain, leather being standard. The early W463s still wore trucks, just wearing suits instead of BDUs. Then in 2018, the 463 second gen was introduced. While it looks like the same car, only 3 parts were carried over. Realistically, they should have just named this the W464, which some people actually mistakenly called it anyways because it seems like a completely new generation. Full tech integration, 64 color ambient interior lighting, steering column mounted gear selector, LCD control panel, Apple CarPlay, meaning that these started at $150,000 new, twice as expensive, 3 times more complicated, a third as reliable, half as cool. The new M176 4.0-liter twin turbocharged engine, while impressive, is seen by many to be less durable, more complex, more maintenance dependent than the simpler and extremely reliable engines from the earlier generations. So now that you understand the broad overview, I can explain why, for me, the real G-spot is the late 90s, early 2000s. You're looking at either the late G320s or early G500s. Why these cars? You're talking about 2 of the most reliable petrol engines ever made for the G-Wagon, in conjunction with a still mostly analog experience in the cockpit, no LCD screens, no automatic start-stop, no complicated turbochargers, without your flux capacitor or your EMF scrubbers, throwing codes. The later G320 going to use the M112 V6, likely with a 5-speed automatic transmission, while earlier G320s used a slightly less powerful straight 6 and 4-speed. The M112, the first ever gasoline V6 built by Mercedes, widely regarded as one of the most reliable engines Mercedes has ever made. That was in the G320. The G500, made from 1998 to 2008, uses the M113, essentially the 8-cylinder big brother of the 112, adding 2 extra cylinders and 292 total horsepower versus just 215 horsepower on the 112. On paper, the 113, the V8, looks like a better option with more horsepower while only giving up about 1.5 mpgs. Now here's where things started to get interesting for me when I was looking to buy my own, because I assumed that the G500 was going to absolutely dominate the G320 in terms of auction pricing, resale value, because it just makes sense. More popular here, more horsepower, equally solid reputation. So I plugged in a data sheet of over 500 auctions that I extracted, W463 auctions pulled from Bring a Trailer, into ChatGPT and Gemini. I asked these AIs where the pricing fell on both. Based purely on auction data, I expected the G500 to be more than the G320, but shockingly, there's a lot of overlap in pricing. In average condition, say something north of 75,000 miles, the G500 generally going to be a bit more expensive than the 320, but for some reason, stats from Bring a Trailer show that lower mileage, well-preserved G320 6-cylinders seem to do slightly better than similar condition V8 G500s. At first, I couldn't make sense of it, but the more that I've lived with the platform, I guess the more it kind of makes sense, and it comes down to buyer psychology. Maybe the late 90s and early 2000s G320 crowd, they're hunting for the simplest version of the W463 experience that still feels like the ghost of a Mercedes of war. People who want an analog military truck with an S-Class vibe, not a rolling nightclub with ambient lighting. The cleaner the G320, the more that it hits that exact nerve. I was open to getting either, but this G320 fell into my lap. It just so happened when I was looking last summer, this one came up for auction and was almost perfect. I wanted the simplest G-Wagon that I could get that was still comfortable to drive, with nice appointments in the interior, functioning climate control, very important in Florida and Louisiana, and a stereo. The digital creep of the G500 as the years went on made it less attractive for people who wanted essentially the perfect combination of old school analog war truck with S-Class refined ride and interior. Early G320s came with straight six engines and 4-speed automatics. Later cars, like mine, came with 5 speeds, and if you're going to daily one of these in the real world, the 4-speed is going to make a meaningful difference in how it feels around town, especially on the highway, versus the 5-speed. So if you want my specific range, my opinion, the sweet spot is 99 to 2001. If you buy a G-Wagon made from 99 to 2001, you're pretty much guaranteed a durable, serviceable engine, a reliable, easier to drive car with a 5-speed transmission, and it's going to be one of the cheapest ways into the G-Wagon ecosystem. You're talking about the simplest versions that you can buy while still having modern G-Wagon luxury, but before the Mercedes Command Center, LCD screens, problematic electronics, turbochargers. If you watched my previous G-Wagon buyer's guide from 2025, I worked closely with known experts. First, I spoke with Bernard Paltram, the owner of Paltram Auto House, one of the most prestigious Mercedes dealerships in Europe, one of the few official Mercedes shops that will actually tear down and restore your G-Wagon, no matter how old or new it is. This is advice that I got straight from Bernard himself when I told him that I wanted the spirit of the G-Wagon, but with a more modern cabin, analog experience, and functioning AC. He suggested anything until 2008 because 2009 is when the bulletproof M113 V8 engine was discontinued. And from 2002 to 2009, you saw this car get heavily digitalized, including integration of the tedious and annoying command system, plus some other electronic upgrades that coincided with the 2002 official release of this car in America. Because the G-Wagon design language has remained functionally the same since its introduction in the 70s, if you own a late 90s, early aughts car, it doesn't look dated. That's before they got Soccer Mom with the chrome brush guards, modern lighting, neon colors. I think that late 90s, early 2000s is the way to go. If you've been to Dakinyama in Tokyo, nice neighborhood, you'd be pretty sure the Japanese government must be subsidizing the G-Wagon for its citizens because there are so many there. And because Tokyo residents primarily use public transit, and they must have a title to a parking spot or a garage for each and every car they own, that means most of these cars are rarely driven, usually on weekends, and are often kept indoors. Mine was no exception. Mine's got less than 35,000 miles, one of the cleanest cars that I own. Swear to God, it still smells like new, and that's what people say when they get in it. Now, let me give you a little walkthrough of this car. Headlight controls. This is kind of funny to me because I don't know how, like many of the things in this car, this works. Running lights, headlights. I'm pretty sure that you can turn on just your left or right headlight. I don't know why that is. I'm sure there's a good reason for it though. Steering wheel. What I like, one stem that does it all. Turn signals and windshield washers. Gauges are all in kilometers. Differential locks. Check it out, front, center, rear, amazing. Defrost, something to do with the windshield wipers. Maybe this is rear and that one's for, I don't know. Interior lights maybe, headlight washers, hazards. Very confusing air conditioning. I think I've kind of gotten it figured out, but it's quite complex. Aftermarket stereo, I have the original that I'm gonna put back in eventually. Shifter, these are all your buttons. I don't know what these do. Windows, also kind of neat. It's got a sunroof. Transfer case, got your 4-wheel drive here. Low, neutral, high. Leather in these 90s, 2000s Mercedes is really nice. I mean, have a look at that. This is a car that's 27 years old. Got leather on the door panels there. Back seat. Here's one of my favorite things. Check this bad boy out right there. Hit that little button. And you got the old armrest. Super luxurious. Parking brake. Another knob right here that I have no clue what it does. Got all my filming junk here in the back, but here are the little jump seats, which is cool, right? And if you need extra space, these seats, the rear seats actually fold down and up. And you've even got little compartments underneath them. You could put, I don't know, contraband, candy, liquor, nudie magazines that you're trying to keep away from your mom and or wife. Oh, a little Gatorade Zero, in case I want some hydration on the road without any additional calories. But what's it like to drive? It's not a fast car, not this one. It takes over 10 seconds to get from 0 to 60, but it's still faster than my Land Cruisers. And you're not buying this car to win races anyways. You might be like me, trying to navigate the potholes of New Orleans in style. Great car for New Orleans. The roads here suck so bad. Like stupid Grenadier. Asshole. While the G-Wagon doesn't feel as tough or as trucky as the Land Cruiser, it's not even close in terms of which is the better driver. The G-Wagon, much more pleasant to operate than the Land Cruiser. Driving the G-Wagon around town makes a statement. And I think that statement is, if you think I'm tough, you should see my boyfriend's 70 series. Hate to say it, but the G-Wagon is like the hers to the Land Cruiser's his. The main difference is how much quieter the G-Wagon is. You're talking about soundproofing. You're talking about a smoother ride. If I hit a bump in the Land Cruiser, and even if you don't feel it, you will, by the way, but you'll hear it when those leaf springs start squeaking in the back. And while the chop of that diesel 1.8Z engine in the Land Cruiser sounds bad as hell, the M112 delivers smooth, quiet power. And you're going to have an even better driving experience with the G500 and the additional V8 power it has on tap. But for moving about the city, I'm not asking for more power. If anything, I may have made better use out of that slightly better fuel economy more than the extra horses. Driving on the interstate, gonna be a little bit more of a chore in the 320 versus the 500. It's not bad, but you're gonna have higher RPMs. I would imagine the problem's even worse if you get the 4-speed 6-cylinder. This is one of those things where, yes, you can daily it if you're driving on the interstate, but the G500 is gonna feel more effortless on a long highway haul. But this isn't a vehicle you buy because you wanna drive 92 for 5 hours straight. You buy it because you wanna drive something timeless, something capable, something handsome, something built like a bank vault, like my Land Cruiser. You've got big windows, you've got great visibility, you're sitting high up, the leather seats are comfy. You would never know it's a 27-year-old car. This one's been so well taken care of. Leather in the back seat especially looks new. Speaking of back seats, I was lucky enough to get mine with the 2 jump seats in the very rear, meaning I can seat 7 people, an entire Catholic household, into my truck. While it's not as much of an attention getter as my 70 series, mainly because the steering wheel is on the correct left side of the car, and because they're much more common in the US than the Toyota 70 series, you still get your fair share of admirers, especially with the tasteful two-tone black and silver backdated look. This truck drives like what it is, a luxury truck. It's smooth, it's quiet, it's comfortable. Some trade-offs that come from driving a military truck, like slightly annoying turning radius, your wife getting mad at you getting in and out of it, but it's a timeless vehicle, and frankly, it makes a whole lot more sense than my Land Cruiser does as a daily driver. This is a vehicle that's still hand-built. I've read that about 100 man-hours goes into assembling each G-Wagon, and the only machine they use in the factory is to put on the windshield. Now, there are some downsides to owning this, as you can imagine. Even though this is a reliable truck, maintenance, a bruiser. German car means Germans slap you in the Wiener Schnitzel maintenance pricing, especially if you go to a dealership. I am embarrassed. I am humiliated to tell you right now. But guys, I spent $8,000 on this car getting it to baseline at the Mercedes dealership in Pensacola, Florida. It was a lot of work though. Full service on the differentials, the transmission, the engine, brakes, replacing the weather stripping, replacing electrical conduit, replacing harnesses, few new seals put in the engine, new battery, new air filter, plus $50 as an extra you for windshield wipers. I could have done this all myself, but I wanted the service performed by a Mercedes dealer who was going to log it in the database if I eventually resold it. That said, I'm anticipating that I'm going to be in my 50s the next time I need a major service on this car with how low mileage it is and getting it baselined in 2025. The only thing I don't like about driving this car are minor quirks, and these quirks are going to be so weird that you're going to think the car is broken until you get on the internet and realize that every other late 90s, early 2000s G-Wagon owner has had the exact same moment. The old school keyless entry kind of sucks. You have to be really close to the car and point it at the rear view mirror for it to work.
Unlock, 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 unlock. Got it.
Wouldn't be a very big deal, but what's mind-blowingly dumb about this car is that it has power door locks, but no button in the cabin to activate them. I learned this the hard way because when I got the car, both of my remotes had to be reprogrammed. Until they were reprogrammed, I had to unlock the passenger door because for some reason it's the only door handle that has a physical keyhole on it. And then I would have to unlock the back passenger door by pulling up the rear door lock stem, which would unlock all the doors. If I had to lock it, I had to do the same thing basically in reverse. Other little freak oddities about this car: the middle vents only expel cold air. On one of those rare days where I had to have the heater on full blast in New Orleans, I thought something was broken because some vents are cranking out blazing engine heat, while the largest middle vents on the dash are freezing cold. Fortunately, I got on the internet, found out I'm not the only person who's made this exact same mistake before. It's just a weird quirk along with the door locks and the cruise control. What I like about cruise control is pressing a button and not being responsible for anything other than making sure I do not die. With the G-Wagon, your cruise control is really a speed limiter. You have to keep your foot on the gas, but the cruise control will limit you from going over a certain speed. So you're still responsible for mashing the throttle. Even when cruise control is engaged, it just stops you from going over the speed limit. The utter lack of cup holders. How did I not mention this first? Not that they're small, not that they're inconvenient. I mean, this car has none of them.
Glove box, your only two kind of cup holders in this entire car are right there.
The idea of a liquid-filled cylinder in the cabin is morally wrong to Mercedes, which is consistent with the rest of the design and I guess the rest of Europe. Cup holders, I suppose, are an American necessity. But in a way, it's the little quirks that make this car charming, isn't it? And what's really going to make you sick is when I tell you how much mine penciled out for. I bought it for less than $40,000. A few bucks less. That's the car, Pacific Freight, import duties. When it got off the boat, it went straight to the Mercedes dealership to have all the 50,000 kilometer services performed on it. That was $8,000. And then I had my headlight bezels, wheel arches repainted in satin black to match the bumpers and the body rails to give it that backdated W460 Wolf look that's so sharp in my opinion. Funny enough, I noticed just a few weeks ago someone was selling almost the exact same car as mine, but with double the miles on Bring a Trailer. We're talking silver with a black backdate. It sold for over $70,000, a G320 with double the miles, almost double the price. Now, I want to acknowledge something for people shopping on a budget. There were smaller engine versions of the G-Wagon if you're shopping purely for a deal. If you want something with about the same horsepower as a golf cart, you could probably snag a good one like a G230 in the $20,000 to $30,000 range and flex on everyone until you open the hood and they all see that you've got hamsters running on wheels to power your vehicle. It's still a G-Wagon though. It still has the look, it's still built in the same factory, still has the vibe, but it's going to be a little thin on power with a 4-cylinder. The 6 is only acceptable. All things being equal, if I could get like a 2001 V8, that would probably be the sweet spot. If I had to take one truck with me through anything until the end of the world, it would be my 70 Series Land Cruiser. But if I had to take one truck with me to Zumba and a power lunch with that client who drinks 4 martinis every lunch and doesn't pay his bills on time, I'm going G-Wagon. With an E. Both are great daily drivers. Both have great character. One's a little bit easier to work with on a day-to-day basis. If you're shopping, This is what I want you to take away. The G-Wagon is intimidating because there are so many versions, but if you focus on the late 90s and early 2000s, the W463 with the 112 or the 113 engine, you get the spirit of the G-Wagon with a cabin that you can live with and without stepping into the modern complexity poo pile. Late G320s and early G500s are the sweet spot because they pair famously durable engines with a mostly analog experience. If you want the simplest version of the modern G-Wagon luxury before tech creep, the late G320, the early G500 is a beautiful answer. If you want the same vibe, a little bit more power, a little bit more effortless driving, insist on the pre-2009 G500s. They're great too. Regardless, if you stick from 99 to 2008, you're going to get a timeless vehicle in the spirit of the original that you're going to love. Drop a comment. Tell me what you would pick if you could only have one, a Land Cruiser or a G-Wagon. And if you're a G-Wagon guy, tell me what you think is the best era. Hit like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you want more deep dives from Jim Ports. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.